Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. It's great to have you all here. Today is, it's the 2nd of February, and we're going to get into a fair bit today. Before we head off tomorrow to a venue that's going to, we can have a one-on-one with Mark Latham. So that should be very good and interesting, and I'll definitely bring that up in the next podcast. And we've seen what's been going on in the news, and it's always concerning, but there's always hope for us all. Because last Saturday, and probably could have been 2 Saturdays ago, but there was an Australia Day clash, where, well, you just have to look into that. We'll get into more of that later. There was an Australian Day clash. We saw the 11th week of the French protests, and the 12th week should be tomorrow, and we also found out about the upcoming Yellow Vest Australian protest on the 9th of this month in Sydney, and a few other places. Also, that I also found interesting was that there was a Iraqi Yellow Vest inspired movement in Iraq growing. So, you know, it's going across the world, guys, and it's very interesting, and it's definitely a solution that we're hoping can inspire the politicians to definitely listen to the people, create change definitely create change around the world. But you know, we're all sick and tired of the government intruding on our lives and telling us what to think and how to live our lives. Hollywood especially, it's just becoming ridiculous. That's why I have faith in the Yellow Vest protesters, because people will just get sick and tired of this intrusion. And the Yellow Vest protesters, slowly, they're finding leaders across France. They did find a leader, so that's just showing us that there's good times coming with these protests, just like when thousands of the Yellow Vest protesters moved for the ambulance on the street. That showed a lot of, that was a good sign from them. And I also saw this interesting meme saying what people need for a revolution. The top picture of the meme had a picture of a Molotov and a guy about to throw it, and it said what we really need for a revolution. Well, it said what we don't need for a revolution. The bottom half of the meme was a guy reading a book, and it said, this is what we need for a revolution, which is, you know, intelligence, education, self-discipline. And, you know, I completely agree with that. It will take more than a government reform to fix our problems. And it's the power of the people, it's the will of the people, the fighting spirit. Something we have lost and not seen for a long time. We will need to make sacrifices for the better of the future of this country. So there's a couple of things I wanted to get into. There was the Australia Day protest with thousands protesting in the streets. I think it was Melbourne. And then we saw Ricky T from Cook's Convicts or whatever. Ricky T was wearing an Australian flag. He marched up to the protest. You can call it provoking or whatever you want to call it, but it's actually Australian pride in a way. But he showed up, and they grabbed him by the flag, pulled him to the ground, and very viciously tried to pull him into the crowd. It was a vicious attack. Not too much happened to him, but it really showed the hypocrisy from the left. I just wanted to get into a quick question. Bayden, our guest again today. He was on the last podcast.
Hey, everybody.
Bayden Mottee here. How far are these people willing to go, bro? We've seen the vicious attacks. We've seen the blatant hypocrisy. How far are these? And are we allowed to even acknowledge our history anymore?
Oh well, that's the good question. I think it's rather obvious that it's a crime, and it's absolutely reprehensible to some people in this country that having love or expressing nationalistic pride is, as I said, bad and all sorts of evil and such, which is bullshit. You know, it's bullshit.
There was a classical liberal guy that I've been talking to. He tells me how the current direction of the left, he doesn't approve of that. He finds it disgusting how the left have progressed nowadays, and he's a classical liberal.
Is that, like, everybody is different to how they have motives behind, say, for example, nationalism. Now, not every... You get, 10 people in the room, and you ask them what nationalism is, like, they're all going to have their own, like, they are going to have, like, a similar answer, but, like, they have different ways of interpreting, they have different ways of perceiving it. And, like, it gets to that where, not, like, for example, Australia Day, I've never met one person on, who talks about, like, who thinks Australia Day is a day that we just sit around and celebrate, colonialism and the murder and subjugation of the indigenous people. I've never met anybody who says or thinks like that. And that's not the case at all. That, nobody, I don't think anybody, most people in this country wouldn't think about that or celebrate that. It's more like we are thinking towards the future of this country. And, like, to be honest, most people just use it as an excuse to get drunk, And then there are people who see it on a different level, people who love this country and go further into things. But yeah,
it's ridiculous. Like, another example. I mean, these guys are just total hypocrites. I mean, if they would have caused harm, they'd say they were justified. If they didn't, they'd say it was a joke. I mean, we saw that Ed Sheeran lunatic at that abortion rally screaming that he was screaming for the death of babies. That left-wing activist Ed Sheeran, the death of babies. But then when he was confronted about it online, he was apparently joking. That just shows how far these people are willing to go to push their beliefs and just completely lie whenever they're confronted.
This just buys into the whole antagonistic bullshit. Like, this is look, there's so many people who got into politics simply because of the reaction from Trump getting in or going as a presidential candidate and winning. Or, like, so many of these people were never in it before that, or rarely thought about it, or just didn't think about it enough. It's like a lot of people are in it for the action and the hostility and the constant, we us versus them kind of motives. And the future of our country is way bigger than just petty, oh yeah, it's okay to be white, oh, kill babies, fucking these bullshit narratives, regurgitated by idiots on the left and the right who just say the same shit over and over again and never think of anything like new or elaborate or study into anything different.
Yeah, we should all take it as an example. All of us should take it as an example to move forward together. It should be like a guide for past understanding and evolving motivation. We should all focus on it.
Look, this is the thing, man. Like, right, you got to look at it from all sides of the argument. Is that there are a lot of Indigenous people who are in disadvantaged situations and that, like, genuinely can't look after themselves, or the area that they're living in is fucking, like, it's lack of absolutely stagnant of opportunity or growth. There's little opportunities for anybody, and that makes it hard. And there are a lot of services which go towards helping the Indigenous people be able to get through things which are hard. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is there's certain people who say that that's nothing, or it doesn't exist, or that's not enough, and they keep on pushing. And, like, what do you expect? Like, what do you think is going to change? Do you think that if we had an Indigenous Prime Minister, for example, that all of the whole Indigenous culture as a collective will just spring up out of their seats that day and say, yeah, like, I'm, definitely going to change my life now and take a real action and effort towards it? Like, it's not going to change anything. Like, it might change policy and stuff in certain ways, but it's a lot deeper than that. And we need to be working together as cultures in understanding the problems and coming together to work towards them, instead of just pointing at, the white man, or pointing at, Indigenous people in general, or certain examples or whatever in the arguments. This is like all cultures have problems. We know that, man. And like, these young kind of conservative or left wing, wannabe demagogues, they're just like regurgitating like textbook basic shit. Like, they have no knowledge or understanding about the intricate depths and complexities when it comes to the political world and society and culture and economics and things like, like, these people it's not they're morons, but they're very naive and uneducated. Like, it's like they're just coming into big school now. you know, and they think all the stuff they've learned from little school makes them big and real smart and stuff. And when they come to like actual more advanced knowledge, they're in a whole new world.
Yeah, facts and evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was another thing. So the Yellow Vest protest. I think it's the 12th one today or tonight. I usually watch the Yellow Vest protests for about an hour and a half every Saturday. I wanted to get into the 11th week. So from last week, I wanted to just touch up on a little things. Inspired an Iraqi Yellow Vest protest. Rises against corruption. And they're trying to send a message to politicians. It's, for high unemployment, undrinkable water. So the Iraqis are, it's definitely interesting to hear about that. But also, last week, a Yellow Vest leader, so he was a leader, he was hospitalised because he had his head bashed into the ground by the riot police. And they say he may lose an eye from what the police did to him, smashing his head into the ground. He's a leader.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Well, like I said to you before today, man, like I think it's disgusting and absolutely like it's repugnant, really, that there are no-go zones in France, and there are often riots in which people from third world countries who are refugees essentially have come here and went to France and are living homeless, and many of them are getting into gang problems and just causing chaos, And these police don't do anything. In fact, they stay away. You see, there's dozens of riot footage where they're the police are bitching it, doing nothing. And these people smashing their cars, their windows and stuff. They're doing nothing, man. And then all of a sudden, when it's a national revolution and people actually do get together and they're fighting, the thing is that they're fighting, the police are obviously having a hard time with these problems and these no-go zones. And these people are trying to fight against what the police, I'm pretty sure the police don't like going in the middle of riots and having their cars smashed up and people throwing stuff at them. I'm sure they obviously don't like it. So the people who are trying to stop that or solve that problem, the police are giving them even worse treatment and hospitalising some of these individuals, and while they're doing nothing to the problem.
Yeah.
It just shows me that, is this even ordered down, or do these people, do these police in France genuinely actually, isn't there a blue vest movement of police, it's the police, yeah? So I'm sure that these ones are the traitors. These police are the ones that are getting self-preservation, man. It's all about the money that they get and the lifestyle that they currently live. They're willing to sell out the future of their country in the sense it's self-preservation, right? But the irony of that is that in the future, there's going to be nothing to preserve because it's going to be taken from them eventually. True self-preservation is changing that system and being an active part so you can play more of a viable asset in the future. People are too lazy, man. People are too uninformed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have lost faith in their government, but we need to show people that politics still matters, and governments can find solutions. But on that note, not really our government. Liberal and Labor, Get Up, Labor's best friend, the Labor backing group, Get Up, have targeted 18 coalition MPs for direct action. So I'm guessing they're from Liberals, and they're asking the public to nominate which Conservative MPs are the worst to help Get Up prioritise targets. So the left and political elites are hitting us hard, using every dirty trick in the book to silence their opposition. How do we fight back against this? It's just normal people as well. We're losing Conservative MPs. They're taking control of this, and they're using emotions to fuel their rights.
Yeah.
So how do we fight back against this?
There's nothing we can do on an institutional level at this point. The people who are elected in, they can only do certain things within their power, and we don't have enough people who are elected in who truly have, or the people who are elected in power, they're not unified, or there's not a coalition of independents who are more conservative or right-wing. But as the people, now I'm going to say this, I think that this whole left-right-wing kind of rivalry between each other is what these people hope. They want to keep us in this trap, playing this ping-pong game, each other just throwing point and exchanging generic counterpoints and just things we say all the time non-stop without our own... We need to we need to just break off and formulate something completely alternative and different, a unique movement, one that Australian history has never had, one that world history has never had. We need to be something completely different off the bat and not just push for a revolution or a reformation in government and change, but we need to push for new ideas and systems that are completely ahead of the times. You know, we need to think of what's going to be in 100 years. I'm sure in 100 years, you know, like some of these current ideologies they're not going to be as viable. They're not going to be as relevant. So when it comes to fighting back, man, people have told us, you know, instruct us, and it's logic. We need to become a part of the institution ourselves, and we need to encourage other people to do it. We all, as individuals, have to formulate our own coalitions and networks of people and see our lives as like an organisation, a base of operation. You are the CEO of your organisation in your life, and you need a board of directors. You need a small group of people who you can put the most trust in to help get the mission going in a progressive forward direction. And that's why you need people you can count upon, and it takes time to build networks, because we live in a dog-eat-dog world where you can't trust anybody these days, and people who have their own self-interest and such. And I see that in the political world so much more, even when I was in the whole music game with rap and stuff. You know, all these fake people who just jump in since Trump won and think they know what it takes because, like, oh yeah, I'm right wing, so obviously everything, like, it's like, yeah, like the things you stand for I agree with as well, but like when it comes to explaining it or defending it or elaborating on it or even evolving the idea, these people just have no idea. It's like they just read shit that you could just Google and see the same thing that they've said, and it's like, you know, like these people just they and there's too many of them, you know, and there's certain journalists. It's in Melbourne predominantly, I think. Like there's too many pseudo-intellectuals in Melbourne who are just one-trick pony jesters.
You challenged someone to a debate. Do you want to get into that?
I challenged Tim Wills from the Unshackled to a debate. It's been 2.5, nearly 3 weeks now, I'd say. I've asked him a couple of times, you know, what can we discuss terms and conditions and just points for the debate, and he's still not getting back to me. And I see that, like, he wrote back the other day, said he's keen to debate, but he's been busy. And I stated, replied, it's been 2.5 weeks. I mean, I'm sure you can take 10 minutes of your time to, you know, say, all right, what are we going to do? Now, it's either that or he doesn't want to talk to me. But if he doesn't want to talk to me, then don't agree to the debate. You just dug yourself a hole and make yourself look like a hypocrite and a coward. But
you definitely got to focus.
But look, I don't have problems with these people as like what they're doing. I like that, you know, individuals like Tim and the Unshackled, even Neil Erickson and such. They're playing a small, useful kind of part in the sense of like showing what's happening, but maybe there's like a lot more levels of depth to understand behind these things than just how, you know, people like Tim or Neil Erickson interpret it. And it's like, I admire that these people are fighting for their country, but is that truly the case, or are they just doing it because it's, you know, Trump won and it's a good source to get a following and make some money online, as Neil Erickson's always asking his followers for donations to, you know, donate to him and shit. It's just, to be frank, man, I'm just sick of the fakes in this game, man, and I think that we need people in this country with intelligence, wisdom, pragmatism, rationalism, who will have a backbone, who are willing to defend the country at all costs, who truly have a mind that's needed in this country in the future of its direction. We don't need one-trick ponies or jesters people who only ever focus on things like immigration issues should just work in immigration. They shouldn't be running a government.
Yes, exactly. The long-lost fighting spirit that we so desperately need back. The attitude, mentality. So we're going to finish this up pretty quick. Going to keep this up for a short one today, but there was just one more thing I wanted to get into. It's pretty relevant, and a couple of people have been talking about it. I just wanted to give a couple of the main talking points that I saw in this recent documentary that has just come out. It's called Jordan Peterson, dismantled for anybody interested. Anybody that, supports Jordan Peterson. This is an interesting watch, and it's kind of changed my perspective a little bit. So the video talks about some interesting things relating to Peterson, and these need to be discussed. It's important, and I respect the video for that. There was an interesting thing. Jordan Peterson worked for the UN in 2019 until 2012. He worked with
2019 till 2012.
Oh, sorry, 2009 until 2012. He worked for the UN. He worked with one of George Soros's proteges. Billionaire George Soros, banker, whatever,
The
globalist. George Soros's proteges, Jim Balessi, which was Jordan Peterson's boss at the time. And Jordan Peterson also worked with Mr. Spirit Cooking John Podesta in his time. On this documentary, it says he wrote a type of Marxist document outlining plans for creating equality of outcome in every country. He also attended the Rockefeller Lodge of Influential, so the Trilateral Commission in 2019. Jordan Peterson was invited, pretty sure he attended. These guys, the Trilateral Commission, these guys are known for promoting global governance. And if that isn't strange enough, Jordan Peterson, he's also been openly criticised for taking antidepressants. And in a lecture he says that the regressive nationalism in Europe is the alternative to the current state of chaos. So he's saying that the nationalism that's growing in Europe is regressive, the opposite to progressive, and promoting an individualistic approach instead of a collective, calling it dangerous. So, in a way, Peterson is promoting the same anti-white propaganda through radical individualism. Similar to the Marxists he criticises, excluding whites from being racially aware, but he wrote an article on his website about Jews having higher means IQ compared to Europeans. So, suggesting that Europeans shouldn't take pride in their heritage and culture. He was also saying that that they're trying to take credit for their ancestors, pushing us further away from uniting. That's what the documentary says anyways. I've kind of got mixed reviews about it, and I like to give it time to actually see what comes out of it, see if Jordan Peterson responds. He can respond, he can do an online whatever. I'm sure someone may question him about it, but I like to give it a little bit of time and see what happens. There was also the rumour about him taking over some kind of cult Pepe figure. So he was doing these slanty talks on the internet with his messages, short abbreviations and stuff. Very clicky. And he also had some kind of weird symbolic holy kind of flame around his head when he was doing this Pepe interview. It's a symbolism, and it's also marketing. So definitely look into this Jordan Peterson Dismantled documentary, calling him the chameleon charlatan. People are pushing him to be the, wolf in sheep's clothing, for other words. So, like I said, I've got mixed reviews, and it definitely is interesting. So, check that out for yourself. I just got into what I found to be the biggest highlights of it. Yeah, man, you're a big fan of Jordan Peterson, and you definitely have researched him for a long time, and pretty much been around since he started on the whole left-wing kind of politics.
Peterson's he's a great clinical psychologist, and I think that he's a smart man, very wise man. I don't think irrespective of whether he's worked for Soros or the UN or whatever, that doesn't invalidate what he says. The things he says, it's things he say, most of them I'd say they're great. I believe in most of what he says, not everything, but for example, the whole individualism argument. Now, individualism in its current sense is, to me, it's a shit thing. I believe in individualism in the sense of we all live our own lives we have to manifest our own destinies. The decisions that we make in our lives, will determine our path, and that we have to self-preservation, look after our families and such. Yes, on an individual sense, that's right. That's how we should live our lives. However, on a collective scale, and especially in circumstances in a nation or when a community's at crisis, you know, it's up to these people to voluntarily take part in something which is, you know, for if the town floods, you know, people are going to have to voluntarily take up action to help clean the town and repair things, right? And we've been through 2 floods, man. Like, a few people do it, and it's good, but most people don't. Most people are too individualistic not to give a shit, you know? And now think of it on a larger scale when it's with a government and the way it's operating. You know, like, I believe there needs to be a balance, because this hyper-individualism's led to this self-indulgent fucking materialistic lifestyle now, where everyone's like, oh, me, millennials, you know, or I have to, it's only about me and my luxury brands and having the newest pair of Nikes or Adidas and all this bullshit, petty, like, fake stuff, man. And we're completely blind, or not blinded, but just apathetic and indifferent to the problems that are going on in our country, where collectivism at an extreme is like, you know, communism, bro. It's like, you're just a number working in a factory, and collectivism at an extreme is a whole other bad thing. So it needs to be a healthy balance, man. It needs to be a healthy balance. You need a society where people can have an individual identity and make their own individual lives and choices and careers and what they want to be. But at the same time, like, when there is a time that's in need, when the community or the country there's problems, people need to put that selfish mentality aside and start, like, and you know, unite together. It's like an individual can create a great idea, but they'll never be able to enforce it by themselves. You know, like, they'll need other people to help with sourcing and getting things done. You know, like, it's you need a collective of people to make something happen. But the difference is, you need a collective of people who have a mission and a solution, when they, you know, not just tear down the system and then, like, fight over each other over who's going to run the new system. Because that's the next thing after anarchy, is that, you know, all of these left-wing groups that held hands together one time at marches and protests are now killing each other because they're fighting over, should they maintain an anarchist society and or communist or socialist or anarcho-capitalist, and all these different fucking subgroups, man.
Yeah, I didn't want to be biased on the subject too, but also for a point for Jordan Peterson's benefit in this one, but when he was calling the nationalism rising in Europe regressive, it was also during the period when Nazis, I guess you'd call them neo-Nazis, were actually rising in Sweden and Germany and had large marches and stuff. So during that period of time when he called it...
You mean Nazis? Neo-Nazis are like contemporary, like, you know, after the whole World War II period.
Yeah.
Yeah, like... Yeah, look,
so that I was saying that...
what are you saying?
That was justifiable, and that's why I was very cautious with the video, because people screw up when they say stuff, and people say stuff that they regret, and there was the current situation of the time when he said it that was different, which was a few years ago. So now nationalism is evolving, and we do look at nationalism. Oh, there was small groups. There was groups, obviously, and they probably rose nationalism, and it was a bit radical. But I think we are improving, and I think he should probably say that too.
Well, nationalism's so bad, you know, half of those people who preach it are the same ones to wave their country flag at the Olympics, or to, you know, have a state of origin team or a favourite sports team or a favourite, you know, like, these people, like, nationalism in its most beautiful sense is like what you'd see at the Olympic Games, you know, people cheering on and loving their own athletes in their country, but at the same time cheering and supporting the athletes from other countries and being impressed by the spectacles of how they perform. And that's how it should be. It should be, we should prioritise our people first, and we should even try to push to the point that we become pioneers again, and we innovators and architects of new paradigms and philosophies and a whole new scape to the future. And we should be promoting that in our nationalism. You know, there's so many different connotations of how people take nationalism. You know, there's racial nationalists who not just think, but, you know, support their country or have a love for their country, but they, for example, they think other people from other races are inferior or should be killed or just shouldn't live there or something. You know, should all be segregated. And there's different levels of extremities when it comes to interpreting nationalism. And I'm quite a strong, hardcore, staunch nationalist myself. However, that doesn't mean that it comes at the expense of what I think about other nations. You know, I think that we need to maintain good relations with other countries, but it's like your family. You know, everyone has that bias to their family. You have to love you know, would you rather, you know, your brother die or your mum or dad die just to save a complete stranger? You know, like if it was out of a stranger and your own mum, and you just say, oh, it's good. I'll pick the stranger to live. You know, I'll let you die. You know, that's insanity. That's disgusting. You know, that's immoral. So you have to love your family, and when you extend that to a macrocosm, you know, as a microcosm as an individual to our country, then our country is our family. We have to treat the same as such, and we don't want people, for example, who come from other countries who have no good intentions in mind. They don't have any willingness to assimilate or integrate into the society, who come and do these bad, horrible crimes, and we can't tolerate that, no matter the colour, whether they're from, you know, Macedonia, or whether they're from Syria, or whether they're from Russia, you know, like or England. We have to treat it's the same. People from outside the country are all people from outside the country. It's not just a matter of race, and that's where people need to stop conflating things with race. It's a human problem, and we have to treat it. I'm not saying we should be easy on it. I think we need to be hard on crime and punishment, actually, very hard. However, we can't just go harder on certain people because they're of a certain colour or whatever. We go harder on people because of their crime, the nature of their crime, and how they did it, and they can, like, just the evidence gathered. So, yeah, like, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing at all. You reckon?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a good one. Thanks for that, guys. Thanks for coming on the show, Bayden. Yeah. And make sure to tune into the next one, guys. We're going to have a lot more talking points, and not too sure when that will be. Tune into the Yellow Vest movement if you guys are going to watch that tonight or not. And it's a good podcast, guys. Send any messages. Please like and subscribe. That helps a lot, guys, and that really helps us complete our mission. We're fine for Australia, and we hope all you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you, and have a good one.